Every Pokemon is somebody's favorite, and one Pokemon is my least favorite. Most Pokemon are friends. Some are my enemy. Right now, I'm actually preparing for the 2024 Pokemon World Championships. I actually leave tomorrow. And there's one Pokemon that I really don't want to play against. Jumpluff. I've spent the last 2 weeks pretty much just complaining to my friends about how much I hate Jumpluff, except I realized I don't actually hate it. Yes, it's annoying to play against, and my team has a bad matchup against it, but I don't feel any animosity towards Jumpluff. Maybe we could even be friends in a couple of years. But that's not the case for every Pokemon. Some Pokemon I would fight on sight if I ever saw them. And realizing that I didn't actually hate Jumpluff made me realize that there are some Pokemon that I really do hate. So let's talk about my 10 most hated Pokemon, starting out with Lycanroc Midnight. This might seem like a weird Pokemon to hate. I mean, it's a Pokemon with 3 different forms. Most of the Pokemon present on this list I have personal beef with, normally from a time that they traumatized me in competitive play. That's not really the case with Lycanroc Midnight. For this Pokemon, I'm afraid my reasoning is a little bit more petty. Lycanroc Midnight is a rock-type Pokemon that is supposed to be this cool, like, werewolf Pokemon, I think. And my actual legal government name is Wolf, and for a while there weren't really many wolf Pokemon. Like, there were a lot of dogs, but there really weren't that many wolves. So when I heard that there was going to be a wolf Pokemon in Sun and Moon, I was super hyped. My issue with Lycanroc Dusk is twofold. Number one, I hate the way it looks. It's like one of those Pokemon that just really irks me. It feels like a Pokemon designed to appeal to like edgy teenagers. And like, okay, listen, if you're an edgy teenager and you're watching this, I got nothing against you, but I think the things that I like in a Pokemon are probably pretty different than the ones that you like, which is fine, but this one's not for me. The other thing though is that this Pokemon just sucks. Like, it really is not very good. First of all, it looks like it should be a dark and rock type, which, like, okay, is probably actually maybe even worse typing than just being a pure rock type, but at least it would fit more thematically. But it's just a pure rock typing, which isn't really helping it out all that much. And its stats are bad and its abilities are weird, and like, it gets the ability No Guard, which is a really cool ability, but it doesn't really have that many good moves to use with it. And so it just kind of feels like a waste of an ability that's already pretty rare on a Pokemon that like nobody cares about. So it's not like this Pokemon ever like really wronged me, but it just really feels like such a letdown that I wanted to include it here on my list. The number 9 Pokemon is a Pokemon that was let down for a different reason. People are going to be upset about this one. I think that people are going to be really mad at this one. My number 9 most hated Pokemon is Glaceon. Don't click off the video. I have very good reason for this, okay? Back in Sword and Shield, I was like trying to figure out how to be a good Pokemon YouTuber. And so I was trying all these different things. And one of the things that I would do is I would attempt to get to number 1 on the ranked ladder, number 1 on the world on the online ladder with a specific Pokemon. The first Pokemon I ever attempted this challenge with was Leafeon, who was a Pokemon that wasn't considered to be very good at the time, but honestly, Leafeon was really good. The challenge was like, I would say challenging, but reasonable. Like, I got there in the end, and it seemed like people really loved it. So I figured after a time I would attempt it with Glaceon. This was the hardest rank 1 challenge I ever did. I think that, like, I don't remember how many hours I spent trying and failing to get Glaceon to rank 1, but it was like too many. I think there's videos that exist somewhere of like parts of it, and it's just like so brutal.
I got crit on the only eruption that they could crit me on. Ah, you gotta be kidding me! I've been hit with like 11 Hydro Pumps and I haven't seen a single one miss. 15 to 20% remaining if my calculations are correct, meaning all I would need to do to kill Sylveon. Why I play this stupid game? I'm about to lose to this guy and lose all of my points. What did I do to deserve this? Sun every single game. Oh, so bad.
I think what frustrated me so much about Glaceon is that like it felt like I should be able to do it. Like, it really seemed like it shouldn't be that difficult because like Glaceon has a lot going for it. It has a high special attack stat. It has like decent natural bulk, especially on the special side. Like, its abilities are useful in the hail, but I just couldn't do it. Well, okay, spoiler alert, I eventually did do it, but like it took so much out of me and I kept getting so close and losing that it's a Pokemon that like I really developed a lot of animosity towards just because I couldn't get it there. I do think if I was attempting this challenge now in Scarlet and Violet, it'd be better because hail has been changed to snow, which is a much better weather condition for bulky ice type Pokemon. So I don't know, maybe at some point I'll attempt it, and well, no, I'm not going to commit to that. I'm not doing it again. Once was bad enough. Anyway, I like the design of Glaceon. I like the evolutions generally, but like that specific experience was so bad that yeah, it's on my list. Coming in at number 8 is Unfezant. This is another Pokemon that I don't have that much to say about because it's never done anything to me personally. I don't know why. This is a Pokemon that I just hate for no good reason. Like, there really is nothing wrong with Unfezant. Like, okay, it's a normal and flying type Pokemon from Unova, and it's not very good. Like, its stats are bad, its abilities are mediocre, like its move pool kind of sucks, but like there's lots of Pokemon that aren't very good, but for whatever reason it's like my brain has zeroed in on Unfezant as the Pokemon that I'm like, why did they make this? Like, why did they create this? Like, if to me Unfezant feels like such a waste, I think in part because there are so many normal and flying type Pokemon, and Unfezant doesn't really feel like it's adding anything unique. It feels like if you fed out them like all of the normal and flying types into like an AI generator, it just would then like it'd spit one out, it would be Unfezant, except if that had happened, it might have been better. Like, it just feels like a Pokemon where like creatively it doesn't speak to me, right? I'm not like, oh, they're doing something cool here. Like, maybe the people who really know a lot about like Pokemon designs think that it's cool, but me who doesn't know anything, it doesn't look cool. It just looks like a pigeon, right? And competitively, it doesn't do anything. Like, it's just like no one's ever tried to use it, and like there's no reason to use it. Like, there's nothing unique or special, right? Even the Pokemon like Toucannon or Chatot, who are not good normal and flying type Pokemon, like they have something unique about them, right? I think they both have a signature move. And like, are they good? No. But are they usable? No. Okay, but like, at least are they memorable? Yeah, right? Like, I remembered Toucannon. I mean, who doesn't love Chatot? Come on. But Unfezant, it's like, I don't know. I don't have anything good to say about it. So it's irrational. I'm sorry if you're an Unfezant fan, but I don't like it at all. I wanted to start this video off with some Pokemon that I didn't have that strong feelings with. That's why I decided to make a top 10 list so we could kind of build. Every Pokemon on this list remaining is a Pokemon that I have strong feelings about. And as a spoiler alert, those feelings are going to get stronger the further up the list we get. The number 7 slot on my list goes to Kommo-o. I hate Kommo-o. Kommo-o is a dragon and fighting type Pokemon introduced in Sun and Moon, and it was so obnoxious to play against for many years. Kommo-o was given a signature Z move that was the only Z move that could hit multiple targets, and it was really strong, and it boosted all of Kommo-o's stats after doing damage. It was just this like super broken move that like I don't know how it made it past development. And so there were entire strategies built around Kommo-o that just like tried to use its Z move and then would set it up, and then like it never felt unfair, like because Kommo-o isn't that good of a Pokemon, and also its typing is really bad. Like, it's a fighting and dragon type Pokemon, and so like it's quadruple weak to fairy, and during Sun and Moon there were so many fairy type Pokemon that were really good. And so it wasn't like a Pokemon that I was like, oh, I hate this thing because it feels unfair, but it was just so obnoxious to play against, and I felt like the teams that I built were always weak to it. And let me tell you, it looks dumb. Maybe that's something that people disagree with me with, but like, I don't know. I think that the concept of like a sound making dragon is really cool, but I don't like the execution at all. And I think the baby forms are like not so memorable and not so good, especially compared to other baby forms of other pseudo legendary Pokemon. But it was popular enough competitive that I always had to look at it. And so there was just this stupid dragon everywhere that was like doing tons of damage and boosting its stats, and like, oh, it was so annoying. Anyway, I thought that I'd never have to look at Kommo-o again, but then it had a bit of a resurgence earlier in this season where it actually won a regional with a totally different set. And so then I had to look at Kommo-o some more. I will say that my feelings towards it have softened a little bit as time has gone on and we've been further and further removed from Z moves. Like, I don't feel as strongly about Kommo-o anymore as I did back during Sun and Moon, but it is a Pokemon that I really don't like. Oh yeah, since I have you here anyway, just a reminder to check and see if you're subscribed. And also please don't unsubscribe if I talked about your favorite Pokemon here. It helps the channel out a lot, and if enough people subscribe, I won't talk about your favorite Pokemon, so ooh, you better do it. Ooh. Anyway, the number 6 Pokemon on our list is a Pokemon with 2 different forms. It's Lilligant. Lilligant might seem like a kind of niche Pokemon to hate because it doesn't feel like it's super popular. Like, Generation 5 Pokemon in general seem like they're kind of overlooked for the most part, like especially the ones that aren't like super broken. And then like Hisui and Lilligant might not seem that impactful either, but I really don't like this Pokemon. It actually enabled one of the most, in my opinion, degenerate forms of play that we've had in, well, like maybe not ever, but it was really degenerate, where basically people have paired over the years since Sun and Moon came out Lilligant with Torkoal. Torkoal's ability Drought sets up the strong Sunlight, which doubles Lilligant's speed thanks to its chlorophyll ability, basically allowing it to move before all other Pokemon. And then Lilligant can do one of a couple different things. It can use the move After You, which is a move that not that many Pokemon learn but can have really high impact. After You causes whatever it hits to move immediately after the user, and so basically if Lilligant targets its own Torkoal, it allows Torkoal to attack as if it had Lilligant's speed stat. Torkoal hits really hard in the sun because it's a fire type. Sun powers up fire type moves, and it gets the move Eruption, which does more damage the higher Torkoal's health is, capping out at like a really high base power. And because Lilligant is so fast, using After You on Torkoal often means that like, yeah, Torkoal won't have taken any damage yet, and so it can just do tons of damage. But if that were it, I would think that it was still fair enough that I wouldn't, you know, like really hate on Lilligant all that much. The problem is it also gets the move Sleep Powder. Sleep Powder is one of my least favorite moves ever. It is a 75% accurate move that puts the target to sleep if it hits. It is extremely degenerate. And whereas the move Spore, which is the sleep move that always hits like with 100% accuracy, is normally given to Pokemon that they like clearly were trying to keep from getting out of hand, Sleep Powder is given to Pokemon with Chlorophyll who can move before pretty much anything else in the game. Giving a Pokemon like Hisui and Lilligant the Focus Sash means that you have to hit it twice to even get rid of it, and you're covering for after you Eruption the whole time. And Lilligant and Torkoal have really good synergy because the only Pokemon immune to Sleep Powder naturally are Pokemon that are Grass type, and Grass type Pokemon are weak to Eruption from Torkoal. Lilligant can also do a couple other annoying things, like it can lock you into moves that you use to try and play around it with the move Encore, forcing you to keep using defensive options like Protect over and over again. It's a really annoying Pokemon to play against. And the thing is, like, it's not a strategy that I ever want to use because it's so inconsistent. Like, Sleep Powder missing a single time can often mean you just like lose a huge chunk of your Pokemon, if not the game. But it feels like whenever I play against one of these players, they hit every single one of their Sleep Powders and there's just nothing I can do about it. Lilligant to me is a degenerate Pokemon and I don't like it, and it's gambling, except that even when I don't choose to gamble, I still feel like I'm the one losing. And Lilligant is not the only Pokemon that makes me feel this way. My number 5 least favorite Pokemon is Venusaur. Listen, I love Venusaur as like a casual fan. Like, the casual fan in me loves Venusaur. Bulbasaur is so cute. I like grew up with, like, you know, the anime from Generation 1. Like, I don't know. I love Venusaur in theory. I don't love Venusaur in practice because Venusaur is similar to Lilligant in that it is a Sleep Powder Chlorophyll user. Venusaur is a little bit different in that it doesn't get the move after you, which is great. I'm glad that it doesn't learn that move, but it is overall a better Pokemon than Lilligant. Venusaur has better stats, it has better typing, and it actually is a bit more offensive. Like, it's a bit scarier as a standalone Pokemon. And Venusaur got a Gigantamax form. Gigantamax Venusaur was one of my least favorite Pokemon to play against because it could choose to not Dynamax and just Sleep Powder your whole team. That sucked. Or it could Gigantamax and use Gmax Vine Lash, one of the strongest max moves in the game, which did a ton of damage up front and did a ton of damage over time, like an unbalanced amount of damage. Plus, it could use other strong max moves like Max Flare based off of Weather Ball, which is really strong, or Earth Power, which turned into Max Quake, which made it bulkier. Gigantamax Venusaur was a problem. The problem with Venusaur is that it's always in the game because, well, Charizard's always in the game, right? And so they're not going to put Charizard in without Venusaur. And so in all these different Pokemon games, you always have access to Venusaur, and there's always Pokemon that are powerful that set up the strong Sunlight, like Groudon or Torkoal or Koraidon nowadays. And so Venusaur can always be used because it's like the main chlorophyll Pokemon. Venusaur is another one where it's like I've tried to use it a couple times and like my Sleep Powders always miss, but whenever I play against it, my opponent acts as if Sleep Powder is Spore. It is extremely frustrating. Like, a theme of this list is that I hate when the game is put into chance time, but I didn't get to choose to play that game, right? It feels like like I didn't opt in to play this horrible mini game, and yet I'm still here. Playing against the Sleep Powder player is super volatile and hard to plan around because not only can Sleep Powder miss, and so you're covering for, okay, well, what if they miss? What if they target this Pokemon? What if they target this Pokemon? Like, how do I play around this? But also, how long your Pokemon sleeps for is variable. If a Pokemon is put to sleep, it can wake up after 1 turn of sleep, 2 turns of sleep, or 3 turns of sleep. After 3, it's guaranteed. But competitive battles don't normally last all that long. And so having your Pokemon out of commission for 3 turns is really difficult, especially because you don't know from the get-go when it's going to wake up. It's a Pokemon that I both hate using and hate playing against, and I feel like I'm always going to have to deal with it just because Charizard's always around, and Mega Evolution might come back in the future. And so, yeah, I really don't like Venusaur. But I do like this week's channel partner, Holzkern. Those of you who've been watching this channel for a while might recognize Holzkern because we've been working with them for well over a year now. It actually might be close to 2 years. Holzkern is an Austrian brand who make incredibly unique watches and jewelry from natural materials. Something that I absolutely love about Holzkern is that they have something for everyone, regardless of your gender or your style. I love that I can match my watches to different looks, and I've even given Holzkern watches to family and friends as birthday gifts too. Even my editor has one. I've also really been enjoying Holzkern's jewelry. I'm not super into jewelry generally, but Holzkern actually sent me a couple pieces to try out, and I've been enjoying wearing them a lot more than I would have expected. Personally, I absolutely love wearing watches. I like that they're both functional, but also like a fashion statement, and they can make an outfit feel more classy and put together. It's like a little cheat code. And also I like knowing the time, but I don't always want to look at my phone, so they're the perfect, you know, solution to this problem. And actually, this is not like sponsor speak. This is real. I've worn a Holzkern watch almost every day for the last 2 years, I think. Like definitely over a year at this point. If you ever see me wearing a watch at a tournament, the brand is Holzkern. They're all Holzkern watches. I feel like all my watches are Holzkern at this point. This one in particular has been my everyday watch for over a year now, and I absolutely adore it. The wood in Holzkern watches is made from FSC certified wood, meaning it was produced without harming the environment, something that is personally very important to me. Holzkern's products are made in small quantities, meaning they're always really high quality and last a long time, really adding to that feeling of a premium accessory that elevates an outfit. I recently went to a friend's wedding and I wore this watch. Not only did it make me feel like a very handsome young man, but I got a ton of compliments on it as well. I actually just got a couple more Holzkern watches, which I'm excited to experiment with and try out. My collection is really growing. And you too can get a ton of compliments on your Holzkern products by clicking the link in the description and using code Wolfey10 for a whopping 10% off your order. Now that's a deal that I could never hate. So now we're up to the top 4, and the number 4 slot in our list is going to confuse a lot of people. The Pokemon I gave the honor of being my 4th most hated Pokemon ever is Incineroar. You thought it was going to be number 1. I know you thought it was going to be number 1, but nope, it's all the way down here at number 4. Surprise. Why is Incineroar not higher? I feel like the fact that I hate Incineroar is kind of like a meme on this channel at this point, right? Well, there's a couple things that go into it. The answer is that it is incredibly poorly designed, in my opinion, from a game balance perspective. Incineroar is the best supporting Pokemon we've ever had. It might be the single best Pokemon we've ever had. I made a full video just talking about Incineroar if you're interested in kind of the long version. But the short version is that it has everything. One of the best type combinations in the game, one of the single best abilities in competitive play, a stupid move pool, both allowing it to hit hard even though it's designed to be a support Pokemon, as well as having some of the best support moves in the game with Fake Out and Parting Shot. It gets buffed every generation despite the fact that like it is so dominant. There have been times where Incineroar has been used on like 75% of teams of the World Championships, which should never be happening. Like that's too high for any Pokemon to get, in my opinion, and certainly a Pokemon that gets that high, you should not be buffing a Pokemon that's that good. I also don't like Incineroar because when I first saw Litten, I was like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. Like another cat Pokemon is a starter. That's great. I love cats. Then it turns into like a tiger wrestler guy. Like, I don't know. I don't like it at all. But why is Incineroar not higher? That's a great question. I mean, you all know that I don't like it. The thing about Incineroar is that while it's not necessarily fair or balanced, it's also not degenerate in the way that a lot of the Pokemon above it, in my opinion, are. Like Incineroar doesn't necessarily introduce variance, even in the same way that Sleep Powder does, where like, I don't want to use the word fair because it's not a fair Pokemon, but it's an honest Pokemon, right? Like, you know what it does. There's not a lot of variance. It's like this ultimate glue Pokemon that kind of holds everything together, and it holds everything together a bit too well, to be clear, but the way in which it holds everything together is like, I would say overall healthy, even if the Pokemon itself isn't. Like imagine the best Pokemon in the game were like Dark Void, right? Or like a Dark Void Darkrai, right? With like 80% accuracy, so you were always just messing with sleep turns. That would be really bad, I think, for the health of the competitive game. Incineroar is definitely too strong, but it's not too strong in a way that makes the game like really volatile or really just like coin flippy. It just kind of smooths out a lot of the edges. Incineroar does also decrease Pokemon diversity. It's kind of like a bar that you have to clear in order to play the game. Not that every Pokemon has to match up well into Incineroar, but a Pokemon that gets completely shut down by it, which is a lot of Pokemon, definitely have a hard time playing. So I don't know. I think also the thing about Incineroar is that at this point I've won every single level of tournament with it, with the exception of the World Championships. It has won me quite a lot of events, and so I think that maybe, I don't want to make any promises, but maybe my feelings on Incineroar might be changing a little bit. Okay, before we get to the top 3, I want to talk about some honorable mentions or Pokemon that I don't like, but I don't dislike them enough to put them on this list. First up is Rellor. One time I saw a zoomed in picture of this Pokemon, and like I didn't have any issue with it before, but then I saw its stupid little face and I decided that I hated it. Wugtrio, that's another new Pokemon. Wugtrio makes me mad because it's kind of like Unfezant, where they designed a Pokemon that has no chance of ever being good in any context, I think. That being said, Wugtrio is not in the list and Unfezant is, because Wugtrio is really funny. Like design wise, I love Wugtrio, but I think that also makes me mad because like it'd be so funny if you could actually use Wugtrio in competitive play, but nobody will because it's just so terrible. Monkey Dory. I don't know why I hate this Pokemon so much, and like maybe my feelings will soften. This thing didn't do anything to me. I don't know. I just hate the way it looks. I really don't like it. Bruxish is just like really ugly, and like who cares if you're ugly, right? But like for some reason Bruxish really irks me. Also, Bruxish has like one of the best abilities in the game. It's called Dazzling. It's the same ability as Serena's Queenly Majesty and Triggeraf's Armor Tail, both of which are really good Pokemon. But the fact that like Bruxish, who also gets this ability, is so bad makes me mad because the ability is so good, but the base Pokemon is just awful. And then the Monkey monkeys. The monkeys from Unova. Simisear, Simipour, Simisage, or yeah, Pansear, Panpour, Pansage. I don't know why I don't like these guys, but like, I think the fact that they're just so generic and also so bad, like either one would have been fine. If they were just generic or just bad, I would have been okay. But like, I don't know. Like these three really missed the mark for me. I think part of the issue is that like in Black and White, you're given one of these monkeys for free, depending on like what your starter Pokemon is. And so when I was younger and I played Black and White for the first time, I was super excited because I was like, oh wow, free Pokemon must be good, right? And it was just like the monkey and it didn't look cool and it wasn't very good. And yeah, so I don't like the monkey. Anyway, I don't feel that strongly about any of those Pokemon. Certainly not as strongly as I feel about our top three. Ordering these Pokemon is really difficult, to be honest, because I have such strong feelings about all of them. But in the end, I settled on my third most hated Pokemon as Thundurus. Specifically Thundurus Incarnate. I don't have any real feelings about Thundurus Therian. Thundurus Incarnate is probably the most nerfed Pokemon in all of competitive Pokemon's history. In fact, like I don't even know who the second most nerfed Pokemon is because Thundurus was so heavily nerfed. The thing about Thundurus is that when you want to talk about degenerate strategies, Thundurus has got to be close to the king, if not the king himself. Thundurus was clearly designed to be this offensive Pokemon. Like it was really fast and really strong with pretty mediocre defenses. But the problem was that it got the ability Prankster, which gives all of its non-damaging moves a stage of priority, and it had a lot of really annoying non-damaging moves. Thunderwave would just paralyze whatever would hit, and Swagger would confuse a Pokemon and give it 2 stages of increased attack. So it was often used in combination with Thunderwave to stop a Pokemon from moving, hopefully a special attacker, but players would launch it at physical attackers as well. But the problem with Thundurus is that because it had Prankster, its moves were always going first, and so there was no way to deny it from clicking one of these moves, and both these moves could just stop you from moving indefinitely. One of the main skills back in like the Black and White and X and Y era was just to like use Thundurus to paralyze everything. Like Paralysis was designed with like the intention, I think, of lowering the speed, like as being a speed control tool, and then it has this secondary effect that can also stop the Pokemon from moving. But in competitive play in those years, it was normally the opposite, where like you would paralyze a Pokemon just so that it would like have a chance to not move. And the fact that it lowered their speed as well was like just a nice bonus. If you think about it this way, the move Fake Out is often used to stop a Pokemon from moving for a single turn, and then the move like doesn't have value after that. But if you hit a Pokemon with Thunder Wave, then every single turn it had a chance of not moving. You could Thunder Wave a Pokemon and then stop it from moving for the next 3 or 4 turns, which is like completely broken. And back in the day, the only type that you couldn't paralyze was ground. Nowadays, as part of Thundurus's nerfs, electric type Pokemon can't be paralyzed, and dark type Pokemon are immune to Prankster, meaning the number of targets that Thundurus can hit is way lower. Back in the day, that wasn't true. You could Thunder Wave everything. You couldn't even stop Thundurus with the move Taunt, which, you know, would stop it from using non-damaging moves because it would often run Taunt itself to taunt your Taunt. And so these defensive Thunduruses would often end up in kind of this prisoner's dilemma where like they both wanted to be really bulky, but then they also wanted to run some speed so that they could taunt the other Thundurus before they got taunted back. Thundurus was just ridiculous. Like it was so incredibly strong. And I might have already mentioned this, but because of Thundurus's Prankster ability, there was no way to stop it from Thunder Waving things in the first place. Like normally for a support Pokemon, you can at least try to like, I don't know, go after it right away and get rid of it. But with Thundurus having Prankster, that like really wasn't an option. And so you were always basically forced to let it paralyze at least one of your Pokemon. And that meant you were always gambling on when that hand was going to come due. Thundurus was responsible for a lot of nerfs in competitive play. The Prankster ability was nerfed to no longer work on dark types. Electric types became immune to paralysis altogether. Swagger's accuracy was lowered from 90 to 85. Confusion's chance of activating was lowered from 50% to 33%. Thunderwave was reduced from 100% accuracy to 90% accuracy. Paralysis' speed cut effect was reduced from dropping a Pokemon to a quarter of its initial speed to only a half, which is a pretty major difference. And there might have even been a couple other things that I'm forgetting about as well. Thundurus hasn't been that good for a while, at least not as a Prankster support Pokemon, but it was so annoying to play against for so many years that I still have animosity towards it all these years later. But not as much animosity as I feel towards the number 2 Pokemon on my list, Smeargle. I hate Smeargle. I hate Smeargle so much. It might seem strange that I would hate a Pokemon like Smeargle so much, because if you look at its stats and its typing, it certainly doesn't stand out as being especially good. But don't let that fool you. Smeargle has done things that I can't even speak of on this channel. The thing about Smeargle is that it learns every single move in the game, including signature moves from other Pokemon. That's a big deal because a lot of signature moves are designed kind of just with the original user in mind, and not necessarily with Smeargle in mind. Smeargle was most toxic back when it could learn the move Dark Void. Dark Void being at the time an 80% accurate move that hit both targets and put both Pokemon to sleep if it hit each of them. We've talked about how broken Sleep Powder was, and this was basically a better version of Sleep Powder on both targets that you couldn't become immune to by being a grass type. And because Smeargle could learn every move in the game, it was extremely difficult to pin down. It could use Fake Out, it could use Follow Me, it could use Wide Guard, it could use the move Crafty Shield, which was Klefki's signature move. It could use Transform. It was so annoying to deal with. nerf. Basically, Smeargle could always support its partner with a supporting move, or it could just go for Dark Void and you never knew what it was going to go for. One of the scariest leads was Smeargle and Mega Kangaskhan, where both Pokemon could in theory fake you out and let the other one set up, where, you know, Mega Kangaskhan could use Fake Out and Smeargle could use Dark Void or Tailwind or something else, or Smeargle could use Fake Out and Mega Kangaskhan could use Power Up Punch. Smeargle would almost always hold the Focus Sash, so you had to hit it multiple times to get rid of it, and its ability Moody gave it a random stat boost by 2 stages at the end of every single turn. That meant that if you tried to play defensive in front of Kangaskhan Smeargle, protecting both your Pokemon, Smeargle could just get a random +2 speed boost and suddenly outspeed your whole team. Back in the day, it could also get boost to its evasion and accuracy, where it could suddenly make Dark Void extremely, like 100% accurate, or it could make itself even harder to hit. Throughout Generation 6, Smeargle was a total menace, and in the final year of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, became one of the most dominant Pokemon in the game. And so it was nerfed going into Sun and Moon, where it can no longer learn Dark Void, and for good measure, they nerfed Dark Void from being 80% accurate on both Pokemon to only 50%, which is like a really massive nerf. It makes me feel kind of bad for Darkrai. But also, Moody was changed to no longer work with accuracy and evasion stats. And I thought that was going to be the end of Smeargle, but it wasn't. It turns out when you can use every single move in the game, you can have a Pokemon that is really annoying. Smeargle was once again a support Pokemon, and although it wasn't able to use Dark Void and it wasn't able to get, you know, evasion boosts from Moody, it was still really, really annoying. People were running Spore on Smeargle to still kind of get that, you know, put the target to sleep effect, make it so you couldn't ignore Smeargle completely. But then players started running Grass type Pokemon and the Safety Goggles item to protect against Spore. So Smeargle started running the move Lovely Kiss, which is basically just an inaccurate sleep move that works on grass types. Every single time I think Smeargle's done for and like isn't going to be an issue, it comes back. Most recently, Smeargle's popped up on teams that are fully built around Trick Room. It uses the move Fake Out and Follow Me to help get Trick Room set up. It can use Spore to put opponents to sleep, and then it can use the move Decorate to double one of its own partner's offensive stats. That's Alchemy's signature move, by the way. It feels like no matter how far I run, no matter how much the game changes, Smeargle remains, and Smeargle is still there to terrorize me. I feel like I've kind of just accepted that I'm never going to get away from Smeargle. All I can hope is that they never give it an evolution, which only leaves my single most hated Pokemon of all time. And as a spoiler, it's a Pokemon that hasn't been used pretty much since the end of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. When I was making this list, that's how I knew that this was the Pokemon that deserved the #1 slot, because even though I haven't seen it for like 5 years, I still feel just as strongly towards it as I did the last time I lost to it. It's a legendary Pokemon from Generation 6, Xerneas. Xerneas is, in my opinion, one of the most unfair Pokemon ever designed. A lot of Pokemon on this list are here because they're degenerate in some way, right? Like they introduce a lot of variants, they're really like luck-based, and they're overall not very fun to play against. Xerneas is not fun to play against, but not because it's doing anything crazy, just because, you know, it can double 3 of its most important stats in a single move. Xerneas is a pure fairy type Pokemon, arguably the best type in the game, with an ability that powers up all its fairy type moves. Fairy type moves are also some of the best in the game, with Moonblast doing tons of single target damage and Dazzling Gleam being a consistent option that hits both opponents. The real issue with Xerneas though is its ability Geomancy, which, as I said, doubles its speed, special attack, and special defense in a single turn. Well, okay, it's not supposed to work that way. It's supposed to take 2 turns, except if you give Xerneas the item Power Herb, an item that makes 2-turn moves activate in a single turn, it gets the benefits right away. Xerneas might be the single most broken Pokemon of all time. It's a Pokemon that I can't even fathom how it was allowed to be pushed into the games. Maybe they thought that they could stop Xerneas by not giving it very many coverage moves, but again, because it's doubling its offensive stat and it gets a power boost just by, you know, having an ability that powers up all fairy type moves, and it's good natural stats and it's great moves, like it doesn't need other moves. Fairy type moves are enough because that's enough to just KO everything. Xerneas was a Pokemon that you could build your entire team to try and stop, and you would still end up losing to it. It's a Pokemon that basically single-handedly introduced all these kind of like niche anti-setup moves like Haze and Roar and the item Red Card and Whirlwind and a couple other things as well, just to try and stop Xerneas. And most of the time it didn't even work. And of course, if Xerneas was just existing in a vacuum, like if it was, you know, one-on-one and you just had to beat the Xerneas, this was like a boss battle in, you know, the single player mode, then yeah, it would be reasonable, right? There are Pokemon that Xerneas can't KO even after setting up. But in a double battle, Xerneas was always coming with support, like Smeargle, Mega Kangaskhan. Primal Groudon was the worst, where if you paired Primal Groudon with Xerneas, the only Pokemon in the game that could resist its fairy type moves were Fire, Steel, and Poison type Pokemon, all of which are weak to Primal Groudon's ground type attacks. It's perfect offensive coverage. And the worst part about Xerneas for me is that it's a Pokemon that, despite being super broken, like it never clicked for me. I was never able to use it. And it wasn't like, oh, I just like missed my sleep powders. Like there was no difference between me and the other players using Xerneas, at least none that were obvious. It wasn't like, oh, like, I just didn't, hit my moves because all the moves worked 100% of the time. That wasn't the issue. It's just that I was bad with Xerneas. So I was always having to deal with this Pokemon and I could never actually use it myself. It was awful. I hate this Pokemon so much. And every time they introduce a new generation's mechanic like Dynamax or Z moves or Terastallization, the very first thing I think is Xerneas going to be in this game? And if it is, how bad is it going to be for me? I'm very grateful that Xerneas was not put into Scarlet and Violet, because a Xerneas that can change its type and use Terra Blast to get different move coverage sounds really, truly close to my worst nightmare. Anyway, those are the 10 Pokemon I hate the most. If your favorite was on this list, I'm sorry. I hope some of these Pokemon are surprises to you. I hope some weren't. And if you like this video, maybe you should watch a video where I talk more about Pokemon that I like instead. I made a video talking about every Pokemon I've won a tournament with, so if you want to watch that, I'd recommend giving it a shot.